Welcome to the Taryn Reeves Show, where your journey to empowerment takes center stage. I'm your host, Taryn Reeves, best-selling author and publishing expert. Together, we'll dive into the hearts and minds of visionaries, disruptors, and trailblazing leaders to explore the most compelling and thought-provoking ideas in life, business, and marketing. Let's inspire, impact, and ignite. This is the Taryn Reeves Show. This morning, well, for me, not so much for my guest, Taylor. Taylor Logue is a social media expert, and she's the founder of Co-Thought Social, a dynamic social media marketing agency dedicated to empowering women in business. With a passion for personal branding and digital strategy, Taylor helps clients transform their social media presence into a powerful revenue-generating asset. Through strategic marketing and expert guidance, they enable entrepreneurs to focus on their strengths while ensuring their brand thrives online. Taylor's innovative approach to social media marketing turns passion into profit, equipping women with the tools and confidence to build impactful, successful brands in the digital space. Taylor, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm super happy to be here.
We're excited to have you. Look, social media is one of those things that, as an entrepreneur, I feel is changing on the daily. And I'm not going to lie, I actually hate it. I hate social media. Actually, I lie. I'm a fan of mindlessly scrolling on TikTok. But as for all of the other platforms, I'm just a bit
Yeah.
like, ugh, I'm on here because I have to be. And I think that attitude comes from the fact that
Yeah.
it's constantly changing. Like it's that hamster wheel where you're like, well, what's happening now? So what do you think are the biggest trends shaping social media marketing today?
Yeah. So, that's a really, really good question. I do feel like so many people are like, when they come to us, they're so overwhelmed by social media because, as you've already stated, it is constantly changing. There's no consistency really with it, which is one of the hardest things. And it definitely makes entrepreneurs' jobs a lot harder because social media is something that everyone needs these days. To be successful in business, I don't think any entrepreneur would just ignore social media completely at this point. They might want to, but they're not
Yeah.
able to. They might want to just mindlessly scroll TikTok, but unfortunately, that's not going to move the needle anywhere, with business wise. So I would say that one of the biggest things in 2025, I actually just did kind of a little mini series on this on my social media that I've seen a lot, even growing at in 2024, is really just the authenticity piece of social media. I think for so long, people were turning it into like highlight reels where it's just showing like the really, really good things in their lives and not showing what's really going on. And so I think that that's a huge trend right now, is rather than like, okay, I'm going to sell you this formula that's going to 10x your business in 4 weeks, but really like showing that authentic side of like whatever it may be in your industry, but like the struggles and the behind the scenes and what's really, really going on, and not just all of the positivity. Obviously, we still want the positivity because that is real, but we also want to see maybe not the so positive things. So I think that that's one of the things right now that I'm seeing, especially with personal brands, really trending.
Yeah, and I love that piece because as a storyteller myself, I own a publishing company. I really do think that authenticity piece is important. It always has been. I am glad to see that social media is becoming more. I was going to use the word real, but I'm not sure that that's still the case. I think we're still on our way there. But we're on the positive with that sort of a thing. And it's so important because I don't think people want to do business with faceless, fake, pretend brands anymore, whether it's a personal brand or a business logo. People don't want that. They want to know who they're actually transacting with and their values, what they stand for. Can you relate to them? So I love that. Now, like you said, all businesses have to be on social media, and whether you're bricks and mortar or digital, the same thing applies because the way that people shop these days is to like go on Instagram and even check the opening hours there rather than Google, or to see whatever people are
Sure.
selling and compare competitors. They go to social, they don't go to Google much anymore. How can businesses use social media marketing to build that brand awareness and create that long-term customer loyalty that we're all after?
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is really important for all brands. And one of the first things we do when we first start working with brands is create a strategy and kind of like a roadmap of how we're going to accomplish these goals. And I mean, for any brand, really, one of the goals should always be building a community around their brand, because if you don't build a community, you're not going to have customers. One of my favorite things to say is people buy from people. They don't buy from a business. And so, especially coming from a personal brand perspective, you really want to build a community and let them engage with you in a real way. And that kind of goes back to that authenticity piece and why it's so important. Because if you're not really being authentic to who you are, you're not going to attract the right audience for you. So I think that that's a really, really important piece all around with the community building too, is being authentic to you, because then you really are attracting those people that are meant to be in your like tribe, so to say.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, I have a little interesting question for you then. Do you find that people who own, and I'm specifically talking digital businesses now, people who own a brand,
Yeah.
for example, do you find that they are now establishing personal brands to run alongside those business brands on social?
I would say for the most part, yes. I would say that, like I said, people buy from people. So a lot of times there are some faceless brands. They don't necessarily need a face to the brand. If you think of like really large brands like Apple, Nike, they don't need necessarily a face. And even Apple has like Steve Jobs is still pretty associated with Apple. But when you're a smaller brand, it is really, really important to include yourself in that brand, because that's what really differentiates you. You can obviously have other differentiating factors within your offer, and you should, but it as a person, you're what really differentiates your brand. So I definitely do see that with a lot of entrepreneurs, is especially being successful on social media, is that you are building a brand around you personally. And for a little bit there was that trend, and I'm sure you've seen it, of like the faceless accounts, which has gone away. It was a pretty quick trend. And I feel like there's a reason for that, because people weren't really connecting with it. Sure, it was aesthetically pleasing and they were making these crazy kind of promises with like digital marketing and stuff, which is silly. But besides that, there was no connection to it. People were like, okay, let's move on to the next.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very interesting to watch though. Let's jump back to strategy then, because we were talking about that earlier. What do you think are some key objectives, or what are some key objectives that you think that every business owner should identify first before they jump into throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping it sticks on their social accounts?
For sure. Yeah. I think it's super, super important. I was actually just having this conversation with a business today. The first piece in strategy is obviously going to be really figuring out what your goals are. So that's always going to be the first piece of it. And for social media, a lot of businesses' goals are going to be community building, like we've already talked about, brand awareness, website traffic for a lot of digital businesses. And so, what we normally do is we're going to frame that strategy around the goals. But then, another really, really key piece to this, and also this goes along with that community building piece, because that's what we're always going to want to do for brands first on social media, is the community building. And so what we really want to do is identify content pillars. And
Mhm.
typically those content pillars are going to be around shareable content, entertaining content, funny content, things that people can relate to. I like to always tell businesses, think of the reels or the posts that you're sending to your friends, because that's what's really shareable. And so that's what we want to do then. And for every business, those content pillars are going to be a little bit different, because say you're working with an interior designer versus a personal brand, they're not going to have the same type of content, of course. You can kind of relate it and use pieces of content from each, but it's going to be different.
Yeah.
That's so true. And I think it's interesting, especially with the rise of TikTok, for example. Like, there's so many good ideas that if you're just watching TikTok in your spare time or whatever it is that you're doing, which even then flows across to Reels, it may not seem like it's related to your business at all. But if you think about it, you can recreate that idea around your business and it's just as relatable, whether that's using a sound or a current trend, whatever it is. Is that something that you see happening a lot? Is that something you do with your clients?
Yeah, for sure. I think that that's a great point. If you see something trending, like it's nice to be able to take advantage of that because with marketing, really any type of marketing, if you see something and it's like familiar to you, for example, like say you see Taylor Swift, everyone knows Taylor Swift. So that's something that's very familiar to people. Or if you hear her music, even in the background, you're like, oh, like that's familiar, that's comfortable. And everyone loves something that's comfortable. So why not use that to your advantage? Or even like with some crazy trends, like the trending dances on TikTok, people know those, they're comfortable, they're fun. So I definitely think that it's a good thing to use trends to your advantage. But not every trend is for every business. If you are like a professional type of business, then maybe you shouldn't be dancing on TikTok. But if you're like a fun personal brand, why not?
Yeah, 100%. So that brings me to the next thing, short form video content, right? My first question for this is, if people are at the stage where they do not have someone managing their social media accounts and they're not very good with tech, how are they going to recreate those professional looking videos for Reels or TikTok?
So, I guess my first thing I would say about that is you don't necessarily have to create super professional videos, especially in the beginning. And I tell this to my clients a lot because what a lot of my clients do is I don't actually film for them. They
Mhm.
film themselves and then they give me the raw footage. And not all of their video content looks super professional. And that's okay. I don't think on Reels or on TikTok, people are expecting super professional quality. Of course, you want it to be clear and you want to wipe off your camera and do like the little things. Maybe you can get a light or like honestly, I'll just give like a few like tips to my clients. Basically, you want to have the light coming at you, not the light behind you, so that your lighting's good. Wipe off your camera. You can get a tripod. There's little things you can do to help the quality, but it doesn't need to be the super, super professional quality where you buy a $3,000 camera or anything like that. So that would be my advice is it's better to have maybe not like, oh my gosh, the most professional quality, but really focus on the quality that you're bringing from the video.
And what about editing? Because you're not going to nail the dance the first time round, or people might slip up and not feel comfortable putting the slip up in the video and they want to cut that little part out. What do you recommend are the easiest DIY tools on the market for editing?
Yeah, no, definitely. I use typically InShot and CapCut, and CapCut is made by TikTok, and I think that's a pretty popular one. InShot's pretty popular too. InShot actually has an AI within their platform that edits for you, so it will split the videos for you. And I really, really love that, especially for like talking head videos. But those are my 2 favorites to use, and then you can also do in-platform editing too on
Mm.
TikTok or on Instagram, and that's pretty user-friendly as well. So, I would say those are probably gonna be your best bets for editing and simplicity too.
Yeah. Yeah. And the short form video content has really taken off, and you can see that on anybody's socials. There's a static post, there's a long form video, and then there's like a 3 minute, 2 minute, 1 minute reel. And the reel is getting 5, 10 times the viewership than the other is. Why do you think that is? Why are short form videos such an effective social media strategy today? I mean, it could change tomorrow, but as it stands today, I believe that's still the case.
Of course. Yeah, no, definitely. Short form video content is definitely king right now in the world of content compared to videos. There's some long form creators that are just absolutely amazing and they are able to keep attention for a very, very long period of time. But I will say that that is rare. Short form video content is so king today because we have such short attention spans. And we're not able to sit down and watch like a 10-15 minute long video even. I just know myself, I'll go on Instagram or TikTok, and if the video doesn't catch my attention within the first 5 to 10 seconds, then I'm going to scroll to the next video. And one of my favorite ways that I've heard a creator put it is you're looking for the purple cow. Like if you're
Yeah.
just driving down the road and you see a black and white cow, a black cow, a brown cow, your attention's not going to really be on it and you're just going to keep driving. But if you see a purple cow, then you're going to stop and be like, oh my gosh, what is that? So that's the best way to describe why short form video content is so popular right now, is because our attention with so much content out there, it's so easy for us to get distracted. And short form video content is short.
For those of you listening and watching who don't know about the purple cow theory that Taylor is referring to, Purple Cow is a book by Seth Godin, who is like a marketing genius. I don't know how that guy does what he does, but highly recommend his books. It's called Purple Cow: Transform Your Business by Being Remarkable. It's definitely worth a read. And Taylor, you've obviously read it and have gained those strategies, which is awesome. Now, I want to know, what are
Yes.
the biggest mistakes that you see businesses make when they're trying to leverage short form video content on their socials?
That is a good question. And I guess the first thing that I do whenever I go in and like start with a new business is we'll do an audit. So we'll do an audit of all of their content, basically optimize their profile. And when I am auditing content, a lot of times I see people getting on there, and I'll give you two probably of the biggest mistakes I see people making.
Yeah.
For talking head reels where they're just talking to camera, I see a lot of people just going in there and just talking. They don't have the hook, or maybe they're trying to hook people, but they don't have good hooks. So I would say that one's a huge one because, like we were already talking about, people get distracted super easily. So you have to catch their attention really, really quick. And if you don't have a good hook, you're not going to do that. And then
Yeah.
the other mistake I see a lot of people making is that they're only posting one type of content. So maybe they're only posting educational content, or maybe they're only posting B-roll with text over it, which is really, really popular on Instagram. But that's not a foolproof strategy because you need to have different types of content so people understand you're well rounded and they can really, really get to know you. So I would say those are probably the two. They're only posting one type of content and it's not getting them the results that they want because it's just not well rounded. It's not giving you a full picture of the business or of the person. And then also just not capturing attention out the get go.
Yeah. Now, I'm interested about the elusive and confusing things about followers and engagement, right? So, there was this thing a while ago where if you didn't have a bazillion followers, nobody was really interested in you. And now it's switched to more engagement, quality over quantity of the people on your page. But I still want to understand, and this is something that I personally don't understand, and I know a lot of people listening won't understand either. It's like you have the option, you still do, to go and buy X amount of followers, right? I had someone pitch me in the DMs just 3 days ago, and he's like, oh, here are my different packages, book a call, and we'll get you this many followers and this many followers. And I wrote back and I said, okay, cool. I said, but are these targeted, like ideal audience for me? He goes, I can't guarantee you leads. And I said, that's not what I'm asking. I was like, is this vanity metrics or is it actually
Yeah.
going to benefit my business? And he just simply wrote back vanity metrics. And I was like, well, that's dumb. right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I get it. It looks great and gives your ego a little nice stroke to have 5, 10, 15, a million followers, right? But how do those accounts that do have those high follower numbers and the high engagement numbers do it? Is there a secret? Like, is it simply content? I can't believe that it's just simply content alone.
Yeah, there's definitely a strategy to it for sure. And I will say I've worked with people in the past who have bought followers, like either by accident or because
Else,
of
yeah.
vanity metrics. Yeah. Well, and a lot of people do get a big boost or they think it's really good social proof to have those followers. And in a sense, it is good social proof to have followers for sure. But you also want those to be real people, like you said. And so with big brands, like I'm just going to say like Target, they're going to be able to get followers. People love Target or like people love, I'm trying to think of like a big designer that people like really like right now, or like Kylie Jenner. She's a
Mm,
great personal brand. People are going to follow her not really just based on her content, but based on just like who she is as a person. But for like smaller people that are getting a ton of followers and also really, really good engagement, I do think it is definitely really good content. They're producing amazing content. Like Mr. Beast is a really good example of this. Yes, he has great content. Whether you like him or you don't, he's made great content.
yeah.
And he has a ton of followers just based off of that amazing content that he's brought that has really brought him a lot of success too. And then
Mm,
also sometimes too, it can be a mixture of paid too. So like some people might be using paid to help grow their followership with bringing profile visits. And then from there, people are looking at their profile and they're like, oh, this is interesting. I'm going to follow them. So I think it's a mixture of some different things with it being whether it's a really well known brand or maybe you are producing just like amazing content, or sometimes you're not necessarily buying your followers, but you are putting some money behind your post. So you
mm.
get more eyes on what you're posting.
Yeah. I do definitely want to talk about paid advertising and organic advertising on social media. But before I jump there, I have one more question in this kind of arena. Let's say that a small business is producing epic content, like really cool content. How do they get that seen by the people? Like, how do they then get the views on that? Because I find that organic can be very, very fickle. And then Instagram used to be about, oh, you have to have 30 hashtags and it has to be this, that, and the next thing. Then it was like, no, don't use that many hashtags. You only need 3. And sometimes don't use any at all. And it's like, well, what is going on? Like, I've spent so much time creating this thing. How do I get eyeballs on my thing? That sounded
Yeah.
really wrong,
No,
but you know
I
what I mean.
No, I definitely know what you mean. That's funny. It is hard. It really is. Like social media used to be, even a few years ago, it was easier kind of to get organic eyeballs on your content. And now it has become a little bit more challenging for sure, but there definitely are still ways to do it. And it's funny because as a social media marketer, I will be scrolling through Instagram and I'll see somebody and it's like, change these 3 settings on your profile and you'll get
Oh,
1 million views on your next reel. And it's everyone wants to make it something like it's easy, and it's not easy. It takes that great content, but even with your great content, you still might not get views. And that's just the reality of it. But I will talk a little bit about the algorithm and how that kind of works with relation to this, because that definitely is probably the most important thing when it comes to this is kind of what is the algorithm pushing out. And it definitely does. It relies on keywords, it relies on hashtags. And then the most important metrics, though, are what's happening with your content. Are people sharing it? Are people saving it? Are people commenting on it? So that's really the most important thing. And right now, the most important metrics are sharing, saving, and commenting.
Mm.
liking
Yeah.
too. And for Instagram specifically, those metrics. And then for TikTok, the most important one is definitely share. When
Mm.
people share, it's basically worth like 25 or 50 likes or something like that to the
Really?
algorithm, is really how it works. Yeah. So you
Very
want to, that's why one of the content pillars when I'm working with people is always shareable content, because if people are sharing your content, you're going to get more eyeballs on it.
mm. What are your favorite content pillars?
I typically use, so I always use promotional, but I typically only do promotional for about 20% of posts. And sometimes when I'm starting out with clients, it will be about 10% because we're doing that community building aspect. And then the rest of them are going to be based around community building. So I like doing like entertaining, shareable, community, and then I'll do educational typically too.
Yep. Yep. For those of you who are listening and watching who don't know what a content pillar is, because it is a bit social media marketing jargon, it's basically just the
Yes.
little boxes, idea boxes, if you like, that you create when you are starting out going, okay, well, what am I going to create this week? Well, I need one educational post. I need one shareable post. I need one funny post, whatever it is. So that's kind of what we're talking about when we mean content pillars. Now let's pop into the little advertising thing, Taylor, on social media, because I mean, if you're a small business, you get 1,000 people pitching you in the DMs about, I'm gonna do your paid advertising, your Facebook ads, blah blah blah. And now obviously everyone starts out with organic because of marketing budget and cash flow and that sort of stuff. But at what stage should a business, do you believe, start investing in paid ads, and what mistakes should they avoid when they decide to press go?
Yeah, no, definitely. I have some clients that like are just trying to get more eyeballs on their posts. And so sometimes we'll do boosted posts, which is a form of advertising, but it's kind of like, I would say like the lowest scale. Like if you're going to do boosted post, you don't want to spend a ton of money because you're not able to really target super, super well. So you may or may not be hitting your target audience. You're not getting the best metrics. You don't really know what's working super well. I would say what I typically use it for is just getting more eyeballs on content and growing brand awareness, growing community, those types of things. And then once you get into a little bit more of a budget, that's like the biggest thing really with paid ads, I would say. If everyone could do paid ads, they would probably do it because it does help grow your business. Like paid ads do work,
Yeah.
it's just like you were saying with the cash flow and everything and what stage you're at. Maybe you don't have a team to like do all of the work that you have coming in, or maybe you don't have funnels set up properly. And that's a big thing too when you get into paid ads is you want to make sure that you have, when once people are coming in, you have them set up to really go through the funnel
Mm,
properly or your ads aren't going to work.
yeah.
So it's really a conversation around cash flow and where your business is at with going into paid ads.
Yeah, definitely. And what are some common misconceptions that people think about organic social media growth, do you think?
That is a good question. And this doesn't happen as often because I think people are getting more educated about social media. But I would say, like a few years ago, people would come to me and be like, okay, we're going to pay you this certain amount of money. And we need to make just a crazy number like $50,000 from social media this month. And it's like, okay, but is your business even ready to like bring in that much money? Like once again, are your funnels set up properly and just all of the things. So I think people used to have kind of like unrealistic expectations with social media because they would go in and be like, okay, I have 0 followers and I want to get to like 10K by the end of the month. And that's just not a realistic expectation. That's not going to happen. And if anyone is guaranteeing that's going to happen, then they're likely buying the followers and they're not real and it's just a vanity metric. And now I've gotten to the point, and I think a lot of other people too, where they know these expectations are not realistic. Unfortunately, yes, we would love to give those results, but it is unrealistic.
Mm, yeah. I'm curious about your opinion on something that Meta started doing, Meta being Facebook, for those who can't keep up with what they keep doing over there, is there used to be the blue tick, right? Which was an earned kind of seal of approval for good content, the place to be by Facebook. Then they changed it to anybody can have a blue tick if you pay a monthly subscription. What's your opinion on that? What are your thoughts?
I don't have super strong thoughts on it. I think most people know that you pay for it. And really, some of my clients have asked about it. I'm not like, oh, you need to pay for it. But if they want to pay for it, they can. And I explain to them the benefits. The benefits of it mainly are that you will get better support if you have an issue with your account. So, say somebody hacks your account, then you're going to be able to like message them and hopefully they'll be able to help you, but nothing is guaranteed. They just say that basically they'll give you better support, and that's like their guarantee with it. There's different stages of it that you can pay for, and some of them come with a like certain advertising budget and certain bells and whistles. But I definitely don't think that you need it by any means. I mean, I myself, being a social media marketer, I haven't paid for it. In the beginning, I did just to see like what it was all about and everything. So I could give my clients and everyone a little bit more information on that. But since finding out, I'm like, I don't really need this. I don't have a super strong opinion about it, but I definitely don't think it's a necessity by any means.
Yeah, so interesting. Smart marketing move though, like to make even more money by Facebook. Like, I do get it. Let's talk about all the
Of
different
course.
platforms because we've had Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, all of the things, and then we have the short-lived ones like Clubhouse and Threads, and I don't know, all these new ones that keep popping up, right? I want to know, are there certain industries or business types that thrive on specific platforms?
For sure. So if I have a B2C person coming to me, business to consumer, I first thing I'm going to recommend to them is Instagram and Facebook. Those
Yeah.
are kind of the bread and butter of the B2C, I would say. Depending on who their target market is, that's going to be the first thing that we go over during that strategy portion as well. And yeah, so B2C definitely always going to be Instagram and Facebook. If you are, say, like a home decor brand, or maybe you're an e-com selling clothing, Pinterest is your
Mm.
next best one after Instagram and Facebook. If you're B2B, always LinkedIn first. You might just need to be on LinkedIn if you're B2B. You might not need to really go out and do anything else. But Pinterest is a really, really good platform too, especially for e-com because you can put links in there
Mm.
directly. I have an e-com client right now that's really, really thriving on Pinterest. And so I think Pinterest is very underrated, especially for actually selling. And then TikTok's great. I love TikTok. I love TikTok, especially for personal brands. I think it's great. With TikTok, you don't have to niche down as much. So on Instagram algorithm actually puts you in a certain category. So for me, I would be a social media marketer. For you, you would be like a publicist and an author kind of in that book world. TikTok doesn't do this. So they're not just going to push your content to a certain type of audience. They'll push your content to everyone as long as it's interesting and good. And so I do love TikTok for personal brands in that sense, where you can post different types of content and it's not going to kind of like package you as much. But the downfall with TikTok is you do have to create a lot of short form video content to really thrive on that platform. So
Mm.
if someone's not willing to put in the time to do all of that short form video content, it's not really going to be as successful. I'm trying to think. Those are the main ones, I guess. And then with a lot of the trending ones, it's kind of funny. Like when Threads first came out, everyone was so excited for Threads and it was the new big thing. And I do know people that are still on Threads, not a ton of people, but I definitely wouldn't say it's like a main offering of mine by any means. Those ones that I just said, those are definitely the main platforms I see people on these days: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then
And
YouTube
oh yes,
too.
you big, huge. Yeah, of course.
I don't do a ton of long form content, so that's why sometimes I forget about YouTube, because I primarily focus on short form video content with my clients. But I do have clients now on YouTube with the YouTube Shorts. So
Mm,
that's the whole nother platform that we could go into. And I love that they're doing YouTube Shorts now. I think it's a really, really big opportunity for creators to kind of start out in that world.
yeah. Yeah. I would say that's probably one of the underrated platforms right now that people should be paying attention to. Do you agree?
Yes, no, definitely. I think there's a lot of growth with YouTube Shorts because long form content is amazing. If you have the capacity to be making long form content, even like a podcast,
Mm,
that's amazing, because what you can do with something like a podcast or long form content is you can make it into short form content. You can take pieces from your podcast or from your YouTube video and put it into a short form video. And so then you are creating this long form piece of content, but then also short form. So you're two birds, one stone.
mm. Yeah. I love it. Let's talk about repurposing content because I'm a huge fan of working smarter and not harder, especially when you've got to be on 7,000 different social platforms, whatever. How does the content strategy vary across the main different platforms, and what should businesses keep in mind when they are repurposing content?
Yeah, so repurposing content is great. I highly recommend this. I'm like you, I definitely think work smarter, not harder. Especially like this is just one thing, and then I'll kind of go into cross platforms. But I've had reels that have performed well, say like 6 months ago, and then I'll just repost the same exact reel and see how it does. Again, it might not do well because maybe whatever I posted was trending at the time, but why not try? You don't have to put
Mm,
any effort into it. So that's how I look at it with that type of stuff. But then also for cross platform, definitely this is a great way to do it. LinkedIn now has a short form video content section of LinkedIn as well. They've had that for, I think, about 6 months to a year or so. So you really can use, like, if you're posting on Instagram, those reels you can use on LinkedIn. I see short form video content doing really, really well on LinkedIn now. Facebook, you can definitely use short form video content. You might need to change things up a bit for some of the platforms like LinkedIn and Facebook. You can put links on there. On Instagram, you can't put links. On TikTok, you can't put links. Pinterest, you can have links as well. YouTube, I mean, if you're doing a long form content, you can have links. But YouTube Shorts, the captions are really, really short. And so some of the other platforms too, they have shorter captions. So that's something that you have to consider, is you might need to change your caption length. Or if you're on X, you can only post 4 pictures. So
yeah.
on Instagram now, you can post 20 in a carousel. So if you're on that platform, then you might need to change that as well. So there's just different considerations that you have to take in when making content based on how the platform is. On Instagram, you can still have 30 hashtags. You don't need to have 30 hashtags, but on LinkedIn, you really only want to have like 3 to 7. You don't want to have more than that. There's just like no reason.
Mm, yeah. Taylor, thank you so much for shining a light into the murky skies of social media because I have learned so much. And I mean, I've been in business and on social media for almost 9 years now, and it still flummoxes me sometimes. I'm going, well, what the hell's going on? But I have learned so many useful practical tips from you today. Thank you so much. Now, we have a tradition on this podcast called the book drop. Obviously, me, I love books, and the audience does too. So we want to know what book
Yeah.
has either impacted you either personally or professionally.
Oh, I'm trying to think of my favorite one. I actually love reading. I'm a huge, huge reader. So I am trying to think of one of my favorite ones. I love The Alchemist. The Alchemist definitely was like
Mm,
personally really, really kind of changed my view. I think I read it 7 or 8 years ago now, and it just really led me on a personal growth journey that at the time I was like not really expecting, and it's definitely continued. So I would say that kind of ignited my personal growth journey that really led to professional growth as well.
yeah. Absolutely. It's a classic that I think everyone should read. It's a little bit wordy here and there, but it's got such good foundational wisdom inside of there. Now, if any of you are wanting to connect with Taylor, and I strongly suggest you do, I am putting her social links, her website, and things in the social notes. So go and hang out with her and soak up all of that extra wisdom that I'm sure she's got hanging around. Taylor, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
That's a wrap on today's episode. If you love the insights and inspiration, don't let it end here. Hit subscribe to stay connected and turn your visions into reality alongside our community of changemakers. I'm Taryn Reeves. Thank you for joining me. And remember, your story has power. See you in the next episode.